So welcome everyone. We want to thank everyone, watching this video, and we want to thank our guests for coming. We're gonna be doing this Q&A called "How to Lead a Team Effectively." So we hope that we can solve some of your questions.
Yeah. So I would like to introduce ourselves a little bit. First of all, so Marta and myself, we are the co-founders of the Remote Recruiters. In the Remote Recruiters, we are specialized in remote hiring in the IT and online sector. So basically, we help small and medium companies to find the right talent globally. And this is who we are. And now I would like to invite you guys to introduce yourself. So go ahead. Who would like to start?
I can start.
Okay, go ahead, Klaus.
My name is Klaus. I'm not an expert. I'm more of a practitioner, I would say. I've been leading virtual teams for many years now. My background is that I'm actually a researcher. I have a PhD in computer science, but I've been on the business side. I've been CEO of 3 companies so far, and sort of a serial entrepreneur. Right now, I'm managing a team of 20 people in 6 different countries. So,
wow,
nice to be here.
Thank you, Klaus.
Thank you, Klaus.
Who's next?
All right, let me go next.
Okay, Olga.
Thank you all. That's a very good start. So I'm Olga, and I'm a professional business coach with over 20 years of experience in the corporate world, but in the past 10 years specifically in coaching. And my clients are entrepreneurs like Klaus and executives like Krish of various companies. And what I do is I help my clients to run their business more effectively in many different ways from many different perspectives. And of course, the location doesn't matter because now we live in a post-COVID world. And of course, my clients work in all the imaginable industries.
Great, that's great.
Thank you, Olga.
Okay, maybe Laura or Chris?
Yeah, I can go next. So hi, everyone. Thank you for this talk. And so my name is Laura, and I'm a digital project manager and also an online business manager. And basically, I work with digital entrepreneurs, and I help them manage their teams, their systems, their projects, so that they can all work more efficiently as well. And yeah, I think I started working remotely in 2014. And yeah, right now I work remotely, like with my clients all the time. And yeah, right now I am managing a team of 10 people. Yeah, and I do love remote working, and I think it's,
Yeah, probably
the best thing ever.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice, Laura.
Mm.
Go ahead, Chris.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on this sort of session. Anyways, very kind of you. So my name's Chris Sassetharan. I am a talent and HR sort of practitioner. I was a headhunter for many years in London before I moved to the other side of the fence, or the dark side, as some people call it, into mainstream HR. And I've been in Singapore since 2013, but I've worked in various HR roles across Central Eastern Europe. So I was in Moscow for 2.5 years. I've obviously been in the UK for a very long time, having come from the UK, but also worked in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Dubai in the Middle East as well. And lovely to be on this program. I guess in terms of remote working, I've done it for a very large part of my working career, not necessarily enforced as it is these days, but there's always been an element of remote working and remote managing in terms of teams. But clearly now, in a lot of respects, we don't have a choice. Right now, all of my team, I have one person in my team in Singapore, but even with that person, it's a remote relationship, and the rest of my team are dispersed across other parts of Asia as well.
Great. So we definitely have a great panel to talk about remote work. we have a few questions, so let's start with one for everyone. So we're gonna ask, each of you to answer this question. Is what is a virtual team for you in your experience? We can like do like the same order if you want, like house.
Yeah, to me, it's just a team that is not in one location, possibly working from home, but at least needing to meet virtually to get everyone together, right?
Okay, but maybe a little bit more what that means for you, or maybe what is like one of the most important things for you in a remote team.
Sorry?
What is one of the most important things for you in a remote team? Not only what it is, but what you think that is important to have in a remote team for for it to work.
Regular meetings, I guess. I haven't thought about that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
That's good.
Maybe Olga?
Yes, I think Klaus definitely nailed it. Because if we can't see each other like we used to in the office, then we have to find another way to communicate, and communication is the key. So, for example, for me, if I don't have a team right now of my own, but my clients are scattered all over the world, between the sessions, we communicate using all sorts of different various platforms. It's WhatsApp, Signal, email, so anything online that allows you to stay in touch.
Okay, now the project manager.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a great question, because I think when I was thinking, okay, virtual team, yeah, it seems obvious, but I think the keyword here is team. Yeah, like what is a team? Because we often think of a team as a group of people who, work together and they just, accomplish some tasks. But I think the team, it goes beyond that. For me, a team is a system with an identity, with a personality. And the team is, the members of the team, they have a common purpose, they have a common goal. And I think that's why it's so powerful. So, and of course, if it's virtual, it means that we interact through the digital tools, and most of the times, digital tools are, virtual teams are located in different parts of the world, right? But I think it's important to put the focus on the fact that the team is a living system and that it has its own personality and its own identity. So that's how I would define it.
Yeah, that's great.
That's it. Okay, let's wait for Chris.
Cool. No, thank you for that. Well, I think I would slightly distinguish, and maybe this is me being pedantic, the words remote and virtual. For me, virtual teams are teams that are put together, and they may not necessarily be the same every time. So you put a virtual team together maybe for a project, et cetera, but they may not be the same team working with each other in 12 months of the year or longer. Whereas for me, remote teams are teams that are obviously scattered in different places, but they are one team. So right now for me, I head up HR at BCIS, and so my team is remote rather than virtual, because it's the same people. They're my HR leads in the different countries, and we work together. So it's more about remote working and remote managing and remote relationships. Whereas I think I would slightly distinguish virtual, where maybe you come together for projects, but then you break up and then you become part of another virtual team, where you might be simultaneously part of different virtual teams at the same time.
Yeah, definitely, that makes sense. Yeah, probably I was thinking about like a remote team, but yeah, we mix like the two terms. But yeah, that's a great point. You have something else to add, Maria?
No, I think I completely agree with all of you guys, and also I think the answer from Laura was great. She explained very well all the points about the virtual team. So yeah, I think in general we have the answer.
I just like to add something else, because we're talking about teams and meetings and just being able to be connected, but also something that we talked about too is being able to be like the autonomy, being able to make decisions without without someone else on top of you, because that's something when we are at office, it's just easier to answer questions and making decisions in a group. But you need this communication, because that's the key, as you all of you like said before, but also being able to make decisions by yourself.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Can I just jump in there? Just one thing that I quickly remembered.
Of course.
I think one of the key things for me, especially with remote teams, is trust. I think for me that's one of the biggest things. When I say trust, it covers everything almost in terms of working and managing and being part of a team, because you need to trust each other to complete tasks, to work unsupervised, to kind of be there and ensure that you're doing what you're doing, and you kind of manage that relationship. So for me, one of the key things, and the manager needs to trust the people in his team, and the people in the team need to trust his or her manager.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. It's connected. So,
right.
Good points.
So Klaus, I have a question for you, and we know you recently create a new team. So could you tell us a little bit more about this process, experience? Share with us your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a company in the blockchain space called DidiShares. We develop asset management solutions for the real estate industry. And we started around 3 years ago, but actually sort of didn't really start growing until about a year ago. So we've grown from something like 3 employees to 20 employees over 1 year. And we are in 6 locations across the world. So we have employees in Denmark, actually 2 different places in Denmark, in Russia, in Pakistan, Norway, Belgium, and also in the US. So very spread out. But this is not my first time managing virtual teams. I've done it before as well. So I know a little bit about what makes it work, and I would say a high degree of communication and coordination is critical, much more than if you are in the same office. So we use chat systems like Telegram and WhatsApp and Slack to communicate all the time. We do weekly status calls for the entire team, where everyone updates each other and discuss issues. It takes about half an hour to 1 hour, and it's critical in order for everyone to stay on the same page. And then we have working teams or working groups for smaller areas of responsibility, such as sales, marketing, and software development. And then I would say we also try to meet physically as much as we can. So we start to go out to conferences again now, and I try to make. We haven't done it so much yet, but the idea is to start mixing different combinations of people. So we always go 2 or 3 to the different conferences, but it's different combinations every time, so people get to learn each other and to know who they are, and meet up. Otherwise, I would say I over communicate as much as not quite a lot. I would say I try to repeat our high level strategy, and I try to coin it in terms that makes it relevant for marketing, software development, and for sales. Again, so that everyone sort of are on the same page, and we go in the same direction, and we are coordinated. And then of course we have offices also in different places, so that helps a bit. So in Denmark we are in 2 destinations, 2 different cities, and we will have longer term, I think, offices in different places where we can sort of collect groups of people at least. And yeah, that's what I can say.
Okay.
Great. That's a very
you definitely have like a big range of like different offices and experience working all around the world, so that gives you a lot of perspective too.
But I'm still learning. I think we can improve a lot. There's a lot of questions. So for instance, we haven't really sort of developed a culture in the company. That's something that I'm looking for input on. So how can we develop a culture, and how important is that for virtual teams? Stuff like that.
Really good point.
Can I ask,
Of course.
Klaus, to clarify something, how did you find all these talents across the world?
Well, my co-founder is from Russia, right? So he's got a network over there, and that helps us to recruit in his area. I myself, I'm based in Denmark. I can recruit here, and every time we recruit some people, they have a network also, so we expand like that, I would say. So we use the people we have in-house in order to reach new employees and to source talent. But it's not easy. It's not easy. Blockchain developers are in high demand, and there's a lot of competition for them.
Mm-hmm. So this one is for Chris. Chris, you inherit an already assembled and functioning virtual team. What are the benefits and challenges with that?
Yeah, well, I guess the benefits are that, unlike Klaus, you don't have to go through the hard work of hiring loads and loads of people and trying to find people. Through it's almost like gold mining, right?
Yeah.
When you think of hiring good talent. So there are benefits, but clearly the other side of the same equation then is that you tend to, as you say, inherit people who you haven't had a say in bringing on board. So it's as much your duty, so in this case, my duty, to try and get to understand the individuals who I have inherited as part of my team or my world. Just because I haven't hired them or I haven't brought them on board doesn't necessarily mean that we can't work together. It's like when you're starting something from scratch, it's kind of sometimes easier because you have a blank sheet of paper, whereas sometimes when you don't have a blank sheet of paper, you have to sometimes rub off things and you have to redraw items. So I would use that kind of analogy in that I have actually been quite fortunate that when I started, we're a relatively smallish company with about 280 odd people. And we've grown very quickly. But I've been quite fortunate that people I've inherited, but I've also had the opportunity to add to my team by hiring new external talent as well. And I think that combination is quite important. So what I've also tried to do is to ensure that I understand and want to make sure that the people that I bring on board also sort of are able to work with the people who are already on board, and that it's so what you don't want is you don't want tissue rejection where either you hire somebody and somebody who's already a well-settled member leaves, or indeed you bring someone on board who doesn't get along with the others in the team and they decide to leave after a short space of time. So there are those challenges that you have to sort of take into account when you're adding to an existing virtual team, and whether that's sort of remote virtual or even physically in the same location, you would still follow these same principles, right? When you're inheriting or adding people to your team. But as I said, touch wood, I've been fortunate that I've inherited good people, and they're still there, and I've also then managed to hire new people who have become part of this remote working team.
Probably when you have like a remote team in your situation, I don't know what you think about this, Olga, is a little bit more difficult to know how they're feeling because you cannot see them. When you have these conflicts, they don't like each other, they are having problems, they're at their home, so you don't know. So I don't know if maybe you have some kind of suggestion, for these issues.
To draw from my experience and the experience of my clients, and that would be a very diverse type of experience. Definitely, what comes to mind first is that something that Klaus and Chris already mentioned is that you need to communicate. And so the communication means whether you are joining the team or somebody else joining your team, you need to talk to them, meet them right away. And I have bad examples when, for a month, a new employee haven't seen or talked to either the team leader or the whole team. Yeah. It needs to be done within the first couple of days, if not on the first day, right? Then integration with the team. That means that that person needs to be introduced to the team properly and as soon as possible as well, right? So the integration needs to start right away.
Yeah.
And well, how do we go about integration? One-to-one meetings, team meeting. It's bringing the person into the team that will, how do you bring the person into the team? Will actually help to see whether the trust can be established right away. And it will enable that trust building. I can talk for hours. Let's move on.
Those are good points.
Yes.
I think that you're 100% right. Like at the beginning, just, you know, because sometimes I think that when someone comes in, some companies, they don't take care of that person, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Chris, I think you want to say something else. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think to echo Klaus's point to a degree, the difference I find between remote working that we're in these days versus maybe a normal pre-pandemic scenario is that the off-the-cuff conversations, somebody comes to your desk and says, hey, you know, do you have 2 minutes, etc. That's kind of disappeared. I'm not saying you can't do that online, because you can still ping somebody on whichever platform you use and say, do you have 2 minutes, and you have calls. But it's, I think people are a little bit more hesitant to do that than if they were to come to my desk if I was in an office with a few other people. So what I have started to do is you just need to be a little bit more structured maybe in your approach, especially when you are bringing new people on board. So I've made it a point, I've recently had a couple of new people into my team, and I made it a point that kind of to have a, not a formula, but a set where in the first day, obviously, as the line manager, you know, have a proper sort of, you know, hour or so's discussion. But then in the first week, I tend to follow a rule where I touch base with the person at least once a day during the first week. And then in the second week, it kind of, between the second and the end of the first month, what I tend to do is I touch base the beginning and the end of the week. So on, let's say, a Monday and a Friday. And then from the second month onwards, then I start to make it kind of a monthly conversations. So just putting a little bit of structure in your diary so that you don't forget about it, because we all forget about it. We just get into our day-to-day stuff. And then suddenly you realize I haven't spoken to my new team member for 5 days. And they might think, you know, what have I done wrong, right? My boss doesn't even want to talk to me. So I think just being a little bit more structured probably helps in these times to make up for the lack of personal physical interaction.
Yeah. Also, I think it's quite important to have the right tools to have all the tasks and all the planning, because if the person, when they are new and they don't know where they can find the documents, the folders, everything that they need to do the task, you know. So I think Laura knows more about these things, the process and all the documentation. I think this point is quite important too, because that person never feel like is lost or is
they're alone.
Be asking all the time, where is this? How can I do this? So I think also the process are quite important too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need to have your systems, you need to have your SOPs, and, you know, that helps, you know, because nobody wants to, you know, start the first day and it's like, okay, so what am I supposed to be doing? So that's how, you know, you create as well, you create trust, and then from the day one, you know, the person can be productive and you know, it's not so lost. But it's a great point what Chris was saying about touching base every day and then every week and so on. And that's something that I also try to do myself. When there's someone new, like you need to be there like every day, just checking in, like, hey, how you doing? You know, do you need me? How can I help you? How can I, you know, make this easier for you? Do you need help? Because what happened is that, you know, when you're new, you don't want to ask, because then maybe they think, oh, maybe they think that I'm silly, you know, that I don't know what I'm doing. So as a manager, you need to be there and say like, hey, you know what, like, I'm here to help you, you know. So the goal is that, you know, you're productive, that you enjoy what you're doing, and that that's what we both parts want. So very important to keep that those check-ins in place. Yeah, definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit more about SOPs? Because it's something that I don't know, if everyone like knows about it or uses them.
Yeah, well, SOPs is basically how you do things in your company. So the step-by-step that you need to follow to complete your processes and your tasks. So you need to have that documented like in writing, so that, when someone comes in, it's like, okay, this is your role and these are the processes. You need to, look at them, understand them, and then go ahead and complete some of the tasks and then ask questions if there is something you don't understand. So even if you don't have them documented, you still have them. They're maybe in your head or in the team's heads, but everybody has SOPs. You may not have them in writing, but you still have them. So it's important as well as the team grows, especially because when you're two people, it's okay, we know what you were doing, but as you grow and if you're hiring, like you can't be explaining the same thing over and over again. And like you don't have to, like you just document it, and that's how you help the new members to be more efficient.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you'd like to add something on this, because
Can I? Yeah. So I'm thinking, for the benefit of people who will be watching this video, and a couple of questions popped in my mind. So when Chris and Laura both were saying that you need to be structured, right? But at the same time, we know that in the either the pandemic or moving on in the remote environment work, we need to over communicate, right? So the first question comes to mind is, well, what is the limit to my team? I cannot, as a manager, stretch myself, right? Or how many people do I need to over communicate with? So that's the first question. What do you think, is the limit to the number of people that you can handle? And the second one is, and I think Lara partially answered that question, is that when your team is too large, then maybe SOPs can help and you don't have to communicate, or do you?
You always have to communicate, but so communication is not like, oh, I tell you what to do, or I'm checking on you like every hour, but it's more about like, okay, these are our systems, this is how the company works, and in your role, this is what you have to do. So these are the processes, so you're gonna follow them, and that's how you can be productive and just do your work. But then obviously there will be questions, and then there will be feedback, and this is, I think, what communication is about. Like if there is something, just say it straight away, don't wait for like the quarterly appraisal or whatever it is. Just constant feedback, fast, and basically just with the focus on improving what we're doing. So I think it's feedback, constant feedback, and then communication. Just like you may have like a weekly meeting, because you need to see each other's faces, you need to keep that trust, and then of course have a chat like Slack or whatever you like, for those like day-to-day, check-ins or little questions that you just need an answer for. So I think the chunk of the work should be documented so that everybody knows what the steps are, and then you can just get it done. And then of course there are just other things that you still need to ask or communicate with your team. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Laura, I just wanted to compliment you and say you are an HR person's dream in terms of a line manager, because everything you said is, you would be a very easy stakeholder to work with.
Thank you very much.
I think Klaus also has a question.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question from Olga, how many you can have on a call like that. So we are 20 now on the team, but I think typically on a weekly status call we have 15, because there's always people doing something else. So I think we can certainly at least double the amount of people that we have on you could say a company-wide call. But we get to a limit, I think, where it doesn't make sense for everyone to hear what everyone is doing, right? So we already have departments. So we have department managers for sales, marketing, and software development. And in principle, it should be enough for them to hear what's going on and for them to have their own status calls, right? But I think the weekly status call we do for the entire company serves other purposes as well. it makes sure that everyone hears what's going on in the other departments, because otherwise they would not get that information. And it also ensures that I would say it cuts down the need for department heads to coordinate within their own teams also. So, and it helps us sort of, it gives me the chance to communicate with everyone on the team, right? So it has other purposes as well, which may make it, I think, relevant to keep it even to the point where we are a much larger team maybe. But then I think the individual status updates might have to be abbreviated to some degree. But it's a really interesting question.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Olga.
I was wondering from your experience, Chris, of within HR, are there any guidelines and policies? What is the limit to number of people in the team for one manager?
Well, I think the old rules used to be sort of a factor of 8, so 1:8. But I think that's in the very old days when it was more sort of an industrialized kind of economy. I think these days, with firstly with technology and with the type of roles are very different. Certainly in this kind of virtual world that we live in, I think you can have more than 8 because communication is that much faster and cascades are that much easier, right? So maybe in the past you had to have either one-on-one conversations or find a time when everyone could gather in a room together. These days, you don't have to do that. You blast an email and it's 7 o'clock in the morning in Singapore or 9 o'clock in the morning in Singapore. When somebody in the UK wakes up, they pick up the email and on their time. So I think communication has made it easier to have more people as part of one team. But it's also, it's like kind of a dagger and and it's like a carrot and a stick type thing, right? It has two sides to the same coin. So the bad thing, of course, is then that everyone's checking emails all the time. So one of the key things for me, certainly, and I try and almost impose this on my team members, is that, I said, just because I send an email at a certain time, that's because I've just thought of something. I don't expect a response. I think we have to be very careful because a lot of the times, certainly in Asia, I think people feel obliged to respond if a boss sends an email at 9 o'clock at night, for example. And I make it a point to say, don't respond to this now, but I'm just, so that you can do it next May. Or if it's on a Friday or a Saturday, I think of something and say, get this, get to this on the Monday, not on the weekend. So I think technology is useful, but we need to be careful about how we use it in the communication piece.
Yeah, I feel that, when you work on like a remote team and in different parts of the world, we understand that happens a lot. And then when you have the flexibility to work at the time, whenever you want, then you have a message at 3 a.m. or at 4 p.m. Yeah. And, we know that, that's okay. If something also, if you communicate through different channels, maybe you can say, okay, this one is for urgent matters, and just keep everything else in a different channel, because we do that a lot, and we work with tools, and with something bad or important happens, we make sure that person just gets the message. But that's a good point, right? Because some people feel like, oh, I'm getting this email at 10 p.m. Yeah. But I think that is also important to let our team know that they understand that doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
But people cannot always determine that, and I think some people have a tendency to react even if it's 10 p.m. right? So you need to over communicate again and be clear on whether it's urgent or not.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. No, I'm very clear. I mean, I've always told my team that if I need it to be done urgently, I will let you know. But otherwise, if it's not urgent, then it doesn't need a reaction straight away.
Yeah. So Olga, this question is for you. So what would you like to suggest to professionals and executives how to integrate a new virtual team member in the most efficient way?
So going back to integration and everything that's already been said, what crossed my mind is actually suddenly, you know, from the files of my brain popped up a file about an article I read. It was a psychological research that actually one person should not have more than 5 or 6 very close connection with people. Why? Because what is close connection? Close connection is with someone who you know very well, and you can care for that person. You actually can make enough time to care for 5 or 6 people. So yes, communication tools allow us to have more. But then, yes, of course, there is another cascade. Another layer of people around you that could be up to 100 that you can still stay in touch with and communicate to a degree, to a certain level. And then I think there's up to 500 acquaintances that you could still remember, because beyond that, it's very tough to remember the names and any stories about them. So that's to the point of maybe the number of people in the team and how we can actually show care. And so that's another interesting point. We mentioned trust. That's great. Second point is how to establish trust. And part of establishing trust is showing care. Again, it's another research done by psychologists. And we're talking about intellectual and emotional quotient to be equally important these days. So showing care, making sure that people feel it, is quite important for integration, for establishing that trust. And another interesting thought crossed my mind. It's important to embrace respect as well. Yeah. So everything that you would want to feel or experience as if you are a VIP client. So treating your team members as you would like to be treated as a VIP client. And that would be respect, care, and actually one more thing, curiosity. Because yes, I can send emails. Yes, I can set up meetings, but will I know what is that shy guy or a lady thinking? So if I don't have curiosity and I don't ask questions, I will not know what they're thinking. I will not know more about them, and therefore I won't be able to show them that I care. And last but not least is the fact that actually well-functioning teams should take responsibility for their own performance, for the performance and well-being of other team members. It's not only the manager that's responsible for everybody, and he sets up everything for the team, but at the same time the team sits back and enjoys being cared for. No, the team should care in response, of course, back about the team leader and be equally responsible for the performance of all the members.
Do you have any questions for Olga?
I think she's perfectly right that you need to care, or at least show care for your employees, right? And have respect for them. I think that's critical.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think one thing as well, when you mentioned that you have to have the curiosity and ask questions to, get to know the person a little bit. And I think it's great. And one thing that, at least I do, which kind of, sometimes you ask questions where people are, you never know what they're going to answer. So what kind of works well is to share. So first you tell them something, you tell them about yourself. You show, like, we need to be, as managers, we don't need to be afraid of show our kind of vulnerability and say, like, okay, you know what, like, I made this mistake. Actually, it's my fault, this is how I'm going to fix it, but I made this mistake, or, oh, this is what I did. And once you start sharing, once they start to see you more as a human and as a person who also fails, then they'll start kind of mimicking that. And then you'll get that result of, like, showing and really, like, sharing more. But just
so Lara, you started talking about this, but do you have anything else to add, about like overcoming the communication challenges?
Yeah, as I said, the protocols, the SOPs, you need to have a system. That's important. And then just, what tool are you going to use, for communication? Also important to say, like, for example, if there is a time of the day where you need everybody to be online, just to manage those expectations, like what's the, expected response time, for example, as Chris was mentioning, like, if I email you at 10 p.m., like, are you expected to reply or not? So those little things really make the difference, just in terms of how you do things in your business. And then, of course, the regular calls, and then this constant feedback that I was also talking about. And yeah, I'll say just lastly, just not to repeat the same things. This is kind of one of my golden rules, as I like to say, which is never assume. Yeah, like if you're not sure about something, never assume, especially when you work remotely, never assume that the other person knows how to do it or knows about it, because it's better to just repeat it like 2 or 3 times just to be sure than to assume, and then the problem can escalate and it can be turn out worse. So that's one thing I try to keep in mind, like never assume, and it's just a common challenge when you work remotely.
I have a question for you, because we're talking about communication and tools. How many tools we should use at the same time to communicate? Because I think that a lot of companies struggle to communicate, and that's because they use so many like tools, WhatsApp, like a project management app, Slack, email, everything.
Well, you need to have a tool for each thing. Basically, if you are managing projects, you need to have a project management tool, but you need to decide like which channel are you going to use for what. So if it's about the task, don't ask me on Slack, maybe ask me on the project management tool. Or if it's just a really urgent thing that I need to know, just drop me a line on Slack. So, but yeah, like let's try to reduce the amount of tools, because we also get a bit crazy, and there's so many cool tools right now in the market that you just need one, one for one for this, one for that, but that's it, and if it's Zoom for calls, and it's not Google Meet, and it's not something else. And so that just to keep it as simple as possible, because otherwise it's overwhelming.
Well, I think we have answered the majority of the questions, but I'm going to ask you again, if you want to add something, just to those questions are from the audience, from the social media. So it's just to give more point if you just came to your mind right now. So, for example, Klaus and Chris, so how do you keep your team engaged and interested? How do you motivate your team?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I have a good answer for it, actually. We try to detect it if we can see that we have disengaged team members. We try to look out for that, and then we try to find out what's the matter. And it might be an employee that is considering to leave us, but it could also be something else, and we don't assume. We try to find out what's wrong, and then do something about it. But we don't have a structured process, I have to say. And in order to keep the team engaged, also we don't have a good solution for that. And I think it might tie into company culture. Being a virtual team, totally a virtual team, and being such a new team, we haven't even started developing a company culture. But it's something actually I'm going to start focusing on more over the next period of time. And if anyone here has any advice for that, I'd be happy to hear.
Okay, so Chris, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so listen, I think firstly, as Klaus has said, let me point out that keeping teams, employees, colleagues engaged is a challenge at any time, whether it's remote or not remote, etc. Right? Of course, it's a little bit easier when there's lots more face-to-face interaction, because you can pick up the sort of body language and the undercurrents that you can't automatically pick up on virtual calls. So, I mean, yeah, there's no magic silver bullet answer to this. I think you've got to keep trying various things. You can also try and kind of replicate as best as you can some of the things you might do on a face-to-face basis, right? So this is not specifically with my particular team, but one of the things we do in the organization, we have started to do is we have kind of monthly town halls. And rather than making the town hall a little bit of a boring business update, we try and attach a little bit of fun towards the end of that town hall. Whether it's a quiz and you kind of dish out, surprise prizes, T-shirts and things like that. It's not the serious nature. It's not about winning the prize, right? We're not talking about $1 million here. It's just to keep things a little bit lighthearted. People are working very hard these days, and especially with remote working, people, the difference between office and the home has completely been dashed, right? So sometimes people tend to work longer hours because they just can't separate work from home. So we try and use these kind of forums to keep things light and engage in a little bit of banter. Some of the other things we have tried but not been consistent with, but I think which we will try and revisit, you can use the tools to have sort of virtual coffee rooms. If you were in an office, you would just grab 2 or 3 people and say, hey, come, let's go and grab a coffee at 10:30 in the morning. Yeah. You don't do that anymore. So maybe the next best thing is that, at 10:30 in the morning, you just ping 3 or 4 people and not talk about work per se, but, just have a half an hour or 20 minutes sort of coffee chat about this, that, and the other. So you can try and replicate some of these things, not the same as physical interaction, but trying to keep it fairly normal sometimes and break the monotony. Because otherwise I find myself in my team calls. I've got a team call in about 20 minutes, my weekly team call, and it's just about work, right? You're talking about work and who's done what and how's the week been, etc. So you want to also have conversations that don't purely involve work.
Yeah, I was gonna say that maybe like some social event like we used to have before, because you can do it like before it was like happy hour or coffee time or coffee chat or something like that. Maybe not every day because that's too much, but I don't know, once a month or something like that. I think that feels great. Yeah. Of course, it's easier with a small team, like 10 people than 300, but just like departments or like sections or something like that. So anyone else has something else to say or suggestions about this?
Just a couple of things that somebody mentioned to me, that there are now interesting applications, mobile phone applications, for groups of people who can be users and be located all over the world. So you can take it for your team, that measures the mood of each group member. Mm. So, if you haven't seen your employee for 2 weeks for whatever reason, you can quickly check, what's the mood there? Takes a second.
Just one thing for Olga, I don't know if you have a secret to, like leading a team, like a remote team, something that you haven't said just yet.
Wow, a secret.
Yeah, like the golden rule that Nara mentioned, like like herself. Yep. It's like a tip or something that we say like is super important.
Yes, if it was a secret, I wouldn't tell you. And
let's pretend that it is.
Yeah, but in terms of tips, I think we have mentioned a lot of things already today. The only thing comes to mind is that with the novelty of a lot of things coming into our life almost every day, and definitely every week, and definitely every month. I mean, just to mention, how do we open up as countries and offices after the pandemic, right? So with a lot of novelty, what you as a team leader or a team member might want to do is to experiment. First of all, be open-minded. to maybe at least open your mindset, be open to the novelty, right? So be flexible, be open to it. And at the same time, don't be afraid to experiment. So bring new things as well to your team. Everything is good in moderation. I'm not saying you have to do it,
Yeah.
but it's great to experiment. This is what keeps the progress going.
Yeah.
And we are in business all about progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that way you're a great asset for your team too. You bring value. That's super important too. We have a question from the audience that says, can you make Agile delivery work with remote teams?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's been a while. I don't do Agile. I used to do it at the beginning of my career, but it can be a challenge because the thing with Agile is that by definition, it kind of emphasizes the face-to-face interactions, yeah, like this continual collaboration,
Yeah.
but still possible to take it to the remote world. So again, like with any team, you need to have the processes and the tools and the protocols so that they can follow. But for Agile teams, I think what's important is, again, to develop this trust, yeah, this open communication and some discipline as well, because they are self-organizing teams. So, you know, with Agile, that you have the small team and that it's a self-organized team. So that's why those three things are very important, you know, trust, communication, and discipline. And again, it's all about the company culture as well. You know, what type of culture do you create so that you can work with this methodology, which is Agile, you know. So as a leader, you know, of an Agile team, I'll definitely encourage constant communication, ongoing communication. You know, make sure you do your daily scrum, your daily stand-up meetings, so that everybody knows what's going on and you can help each other if needed. And then again, use the Agile project management tools. Like you can use Trello if it's very basic. If you need something more robust, you can use Jira. But yeah, definitely, again, it's all boils down to the same thing, like trust, communication, tools, and a healthy company culture.
Good.
Yeah.
Great answer. And maybe like you want to ask like the last one?
Yeah, well, the last one is for Klaus and Chris. So how do you envision your team working remotely and long term?
In a couple of years.
For us, it will always be the way of life. There's no way around it. It's totally normal in the blockchain industry to work like that because we can't find all the talent we need in a single destination. And also we need to be physically present in big business cities around the world like New York City or London. So we'll keep doing it, of course, but we will develop offices in the different locations. So I think people will have, in most of our employees will have a local physical office to go into. I think that will help a lot. And then we will probably keep some kind of weekly status call, I think, in some format or other, as we're doing now for everyone. I'd like to do that. And then we need to start developing a culture as well. Something to
that'll help
create more cohesion, I think, in the team than we have today.
Yeah, remote culture, you know, just developing like that structure will help a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need offices anymore.
Yeah.
Good. And what about you, Chris?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've largely worked in companies that have multiple locations. So kind of remote, being part of a remote team, either with a manager who's been away or being a leader of teams where I've had team members in different countries. This has been a way of working for me for at least 10 years. So it's not new. Of course, what is different and what is new is that we are forced to do it right now. And to Klaus's point, yeah, you know, right now, you know, in my current organization, we're in 9 countries. So there is always going to be an element for me, for my colleagues, an element of remote team management, remote team working, because you have team members in other countries. But to echo Klaus's point, there will be colleagues in the countries itself. So you also have that kind of hybrid. But I don't think, I think what's happened with the pandemic is it's opened up a whole host of opportunities in terms of talent. And Klaus has made the point that they, for the kind of work they're doing, they can have team members in any country virtually because they don't need to be in the same location. That's what technology's kind of helped us sort of do, and it's now become acceptable. I think for the first 6-8 months, people had no idea about how to use these technologies and be part of a virtual team. Now you find most of the population or a large proportion of people saying they don't want to go back to the office, or that people want some form of a hybrid structure. So as human beings, we're always adaptable. And when crisis hits, that's when we adapt the best. So I think remote teams are here to stay. I don't think that's going to change. And then it's just getting better because of technology is getting that much better, through better Wi-Fi, better systems, and so on.
Yeah.
And I think,
Can I share my last takeaway?
Of course, Olga, go ahead.
Yeah. I absolutely loved the experience today. And what I'm hearing is that not only remote teams, but also remote employees, well, maybe there could be one team member that is remote in a team that sits together. So having at least 1 to all employees being remotely is going to be a norm. And that's where Marta and Maria, you will come through with your expertise in recruitment. And is it that your company exists because this is our reality?
Not really. So this started before. You're talking about the pandemic, right? No. So this started, pre-COVID, because for 3 years I traveled the world. I was a digital nomad, and I was doing something else. I was a freelancer doing a little bit of digital marketing, and I met a lot of CEOs, small companies, just doing the same that I was doing, working remotely. And they had this issue. They didn't know where to find people for the remote teams because the culture is different. And when you're in the same boat, because you also travel and work with people from all around the world, you understand the culture too. So I started hearing all the stories. I studied human resources. So I created this little thing by myself. But then, COVID hit. It was kind of messy. I didn't know what to do. And then Maria and I decided to do something together and just make it bigger, specialize, because she's expert in digital marketing. We specialize in IT now. And that's, how it started, how it's right now, because
so now it's more trending, of course, for the situation, but the idea was before to COVID. So
you were right in time, ready for the market demand.
Definitely. We're happy. It's been a disaster last year, but we're happy that somehow we were ready to help other businesses working remotely, and we will keep doing it for sure, because more people need our help now.
Exactly. So,
I think that's it.
This is all. So thank you very much and for your time. So we will publish this video in a few days. So we will share with our audience. They will see the answers to their questions. So now this is all. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, guys.